Anyone who's ever picked up a guitar knows the name Aerosmith, the band that turned chaos into anthems, pain into power, and swagger into an art form. They weren't just America's answer to the Rolling Stones. They became something far bigger, a symbol of survival, redemption, and pure, unapologetic rock and roll. But behind the shiny leather pants, screaming fans, and platinum records, there's a story of addiction, betrayal, near-death experiences, and one of the greatest comebacks in music history. This is the rise, fall, and rebirth of Aerosmith, the band that refused to die. It's 1970, Boston. Steven Tyler, a wild-haired kid with a voice that could cut glass, meets Joe Perry, a guitar player who looked like he walked straight out of a Keith Richards fever dream. They connected instantly, one obsessed with rhythm and melody, the other with distortion and danger. Together, they were like gasoline and fire. Soon, they were joined by Tom Hamilton on bass, Joey Kramer on drums, and Brad Whitford on rhythm guitar. And just like that, Aerosmith was born. In 1973, they released their self-titled debut album. It didn't explode at first, but hidden in there was a little song called Dream On.
Half my life's in books, written pages.
Tyler wrote it when he was just 17. It didn't sound like anything else. It wasn't about girls or cars. It was about holding on to a dream when the world tells you you'll never make it. Dream On didn't just become a hit, it became a prophecy. By the mid-70s, Aerosmith was unstoppable. Get Your Wings, Toys in the Attic, Rocks, 3 albums that turned them into rock gods. Sweet Emotion, Walk This Way, Back in the Saddle. Each track was a punch to the face, dripping with blues, grit, and danger. They weren't polished. They were raw, dirty, and real. The kind of band that made you feel like you were living on the edge. Because they were. On stage, Steven Tyler wasn't just a singer. He was a tornado in silk scarves, twisting, screaming, sweating pure electricity. And Joe Perry? His Les Paul roared like thunder. Together, they became the Toxic Twins. They didn't just play rock and roll, they embodied it. But fame has a dark side. Behind the scenes, the drugs got heavier, the parties got longer, and slowly, that dream began to crack. By 1977, Aerosmith was living in a blur of cocaine, heroin, and chaos. They were touring non-stop, fighting constantly, and recording barely functional. During the sessions for Draw the Line, things started to spiral. Tyler and Perry were barely speaking. The band that once fed on chemistry was now choking on it. One night during a show, a bottle was thrown backstage. Perry's wife and Tyler's girlfriend got into a fight. Joe Perry had enough. He quit the band mid-tour. The unthinkable had happened. Aerosmith was broken.
Tyler tried to carry on with replacements, but without Joe, the magic was gone. The albums flopped, the tours bombed, and by the early 80s, Aerosmith was a ghost of itself. Tyler, deep in addiction, crashed his motorcycle in 1980. Doctors weren't sure he'd even sing again. The dream, it was dead. But rock and roll loves a good comeback. In 1984, backstage at a Joe Perry Project show, Steven and Joe ran into each other. The tension was still there, but so was the spark. They talked, they laughed, they remembered what it felt like to believe. By 1985, Aerosmith was back together. But this wasn't the 70s anymore. MTV had taken over, hair metal ruled the airwaves, and Aerosmith was seen as a relic. So they did what no one expected. They humbled themselves. They got clean. For real this time. They went to rehab, faced their demons, and came out stronger. Then came the collaboration that changed everything. Walk This Way with Run DMC in 1986. That single didn't just resurrect Aerosmith, it bridged 2 worlds. It brought rock and hip-hop together,
and made Aerosmith cool again for an entire new generation. Soon after, they released Permanent Vacation, and Dude Looks Like a Lady hit the charts like a thunderbolt. Then came Pump with Love in an Elevator and Janie's Got a Gun, and Get a Grip, the peak of their second life, with Cryin', Crazy, and Amazing. Their music videos dominated MTV. Aerosmith was everywhere. They weren't just survivors, they were icons reborn. By the mid-1990s, Aerosmith was a brand as much as a band. Their music was in movies, their faces on magazine covers, and their story, pure rock mythology. In 1998, they gave the world one of their biggest hits ever, I Don't Wanna Miss a Thing.
I just wanna stay with you.
Written for the movie Armageddon, it topped the charts worldwide. Suddenly, the band that once played filthy clubs in Boston was writing love ballads for Hollywood, and the world sang along. But even through the fame, Aerosmith never pretended to be perfect. They fought, they relapsed, they made up. Because that's what families do. Steven Tyler once said, "We've been to hell and back so many times we should have frequent flyer miles." And maybe that's what made them real. Their songs weren't about perfection. They were about pain, lust, survival. The messy, beautiful chaos of life itself. Today, Aerosmith's legacy stands as one of the greatest in rock history. Over 150 million records sold, countless awards, and a story that refuses to fade. From Dream On to Walk This Way, from near death to resurrection, they taught us something. That no matter how far you fall, no matter how lost you get, if you hold on to the music, you can always find your way back. Because Aerosmith wasn't just a band. They were, and still are, proof that rock and roll never dies. Dream on. Dream until your dream comes true.